Welcome back, Dia Builders. I have another diorama tutorial for you guys. Somebody on Instagram asked me if I could make a rooftop that would go along with the Dojo type of diorama. I am making a temple slash dojo kind of diorama. I'm still working on it. I've been just busy. I haven't really gotten to it. But this is my take on it. I did see somebody else do a rooftop just like this, but I couldn't find any tutorial, so I went ahead and make a tutorial for everybody to use. And thanks for watching, guys. Let's just get right into the project. Alright guys, so what I have in front of you is the 1-inch pink insulation foam that we use for all our projects. It's 16 inches long, 9 inches tall, and this is going to be the roof that we're making. And what we're going to do next is actually going to measure out 1.25 inch sections, which also equals 30 millimeters. And I'm going to go ahead and mark that out right here so you guys could see. I'm actually going to bring the camera closer so you guys can see the actual measurements. Okay, so here we are with a closer look. Like I said, it's about 30 millimeters. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that all the way across through my whole pink insulation foam, and I'm going to draw the lines going straight up. And then I'm going to come back so you guys can see the lines, and then I'll show you guys the next step. Alright, now that I have all the lines measured out, I just want to point out one more thing. You're going to want to draw your lines going down this way so you could separate each. They're basically going to be wooden logs for the roof. So make sure you do those lines. And then these lines are just going to help us guide us when we actually start putting the dowels down for the roofing. So we're going to actually set this aside, and I'm going to go ahead and grab the next material that we're going to use in this project. And now that I have the next material right in front of you guys, I have some cardstock right here. If you can find black cardstock, that would be the best material that you could find for this project. It would make it a lot easier on you. But all I have is white cardstock, and I couldn't find any at Michael's. So I'm going to go ahead and go outside and spray these with some flat black spray paint. And then we're going to come back and I'm going to show you the dimensions that we're going to cut them into. Alright, now that I just roughly spray painted the cardstock with the flat black spray paint, we're actually going to go on to cutting the strips out for the roofing. I actually have 2 more of these sheets drying off to the side because I'm going to need some extra more strips. But what I have here is pretty much it's a paper cutter. It has measurements on here already. 1 inch and 2 inches. So we're actually going to line up our paper on the 1 inch mark, and we're going to cut have the paper long ways, and we're going to cut 1 inch strips. So I'm going to go ahead and cut all the strips out, and then we're going to move on to the next material that we're going to need for the roof. Alright, so we have our next material here. We're going to start using some wooden dowels. I'll have the ones that I use. I'll have a picture of the ones I use down in the left corner for you guys. And I'm going to just measure out 9 inches on these wooden dowels. I just want to show you this one's, I already cut this one. It's going to be up to 9 inches. We're going to cut about 15 of these for the roofing as well. So I just want to make sure I get the right measurement. Mark it there. As always, guys, I love using my trusty tool. These dog clippers, these old dog clippers that I have to cut straight lines on wooden dowels. I'm going to go ahead and do that 14 more times. And then I'm going to go take them outside for a quick spray with that flat black that I used on that cardstock. So when we come back, these wooden dowels will be painted flat black with that spray paint. And before I forget, I have a 7/16 wide wooden dowel tube for the very top of the roof. And I cut this to the same length as the foam, which I believe was 16 inches. I just wanted to mention that before I actually go spray paint this with the other wooden dowels. Alright, now that I got most of my wooden dowels fairly covered with that flat black spray paint, as well as the larger dowel that I showed you guys a little bit ago, we're going to actually paint these wooden dowels and the larger wooden dowel like a reddish brown color. I don't really have that color, so I'm going to mix brick red and just regular brown. I will have the pictures of those down in the corner so you guys can see what brand I'm using and exactly what colors I'm using. I'm going to go ahead and mix these colors up off camera real quick, and then we're going to get into painting these wooden dowels. Alright, now that I have my paint all prepped up, we're going to go ahead and start painting these wooden dowels. I'll just paint one on camera for you guys. I'm actually going to use that dry brushing technique that I showed in my other videos. And we're just going to dry brush this reddish brown color on all of these wooden dowels. I'm going to paint one fully on camera for you guys, and then I'm going to go ahead and paint everything else off camera. Like I said, we're just using the dry brushing technique. You put some of the paint on your brush, and then you wipe off the excess paint until your brush is almost dry. And then you lightly feather your bristles onto whatever you're painting. So we're going to want to get a good amount of coverage on here, about 80%. We still want a little bit of the black showing. I like that grungy look. So as you can see, Let me move these out of the way. It's a really dark color. As you can see, I don't know if it's picking up on camera with all these bright lights, but I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of these up with this reddish brown, and then I'm going to come back and show you guys all of them painted so you can see them fully painted, and then we're going to move on to the next step. Alright, now that we have all our dowels painted up with that reddish brown that we created, I'm going to go ahead and set those aside, and we're going to move on to the next step. Alright, so the next step is we're going to actually paint up our black strips that we painted and cut out. We're going to paint it emerald green. I'll leave a picture down in the left hand corner for you guys so you can see what paint I used. I already painted the majority of them because it was going to take me a while, so I prepped these ones already. I need these smaller ones for later on. I'm going to paint these off camera. Just so you know, just paint them all green. I did a dry brushing technique just to give it a weathered look. So that step's pretty much done. And after we do that step, we're going to go back to our pink installation foam. And I just added some wood texture or some wood effect right here. I want it to be more bold. If I did the regular wood grain that I did with my last video, it's going to kind of get lost in the dial. I want this to be really bold. I did do the wood grain, my wood grain technique on the side of them, as well as the bottom of the pink installation foam. And I'm going to go ahead and black base this off camera and then paint it the same reddish brown that we created for the wooden dowels, and then we're going to come back and it'll be time to assemble everything together. Alright, now that we have our strips painted up with this emerald green, we have our roof piece painted up and our wooden dowels painted up. I just want to show you guys, I didn't paint the whole thing because we are going to layer the emerald strips onto here for the shingles, and I didn't paint all of it on the very bottom. I just painted the part that's going to be visible when I take pictures. Everything else is pretty much just black based or just left pink because it's going to get covered up by something else. So the next step that we're going to do is we're going to start assembling this piece together. And all we're going to do is take our first wooden dowel, our strips, and we're going to actually start gluing them, overlapping each other straight up the foam piece. So I'm just going to apply some hot glue on the back of the strip. You're going to want to line this up as straight as possible so it comes out looking really good. So I'm just going to go ahead and place that down, and then the next strip as well, same thing, just add some hot glue right here. You could probably get away using tacky glue as well. It's just I like hot glue because it sets a lot faster, and I could knock out these shingles pretty fast. And we're just overlapping them. You don't want a gap in between them, you just want to overlap them. So as you can see, there's a slight overlap on them. I'm going to go ahead and do one more. Again, I'm just applying a little bit of hot glue at the very end, and then lining it up and making sure I have some overlap on the next one. I'm going to go ahead and do that all the way up, and I'm going to come back and we're going to go on to the next step. Alright, now that I have all the strips glued on the very edge and overlapping each other, I'm going to go ahead and grab our first wooden dowel. And what I'm going to do is place some hot glue either on the wooden dowel or on the shingles. I'm going to go ahead and glue that on the very edge. I'm probably going to do this off camera. I'm just showing you guys this next step on camera so you guys see it. But it's going to be a lot easier if I could glue this on off camera. So I'm going to be right back after I glue this on. Alright, now that the wooden dowel is glued right on the very edge, now what we're going to do is going to pick up all of our shingles, and we're just going to flip them to their side. Let's see if I can grab all of these at once. You got to make sure your glue is nice and secure. Let's see if I could do this on camera. And the dividing lines where we had put our lines to measure out each of these logs, we're going to put a wooden dowel onto the next part, so this line's going to get a wooden dowel right under it. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that off cameras so it's easier for me, and then we're going to come back and you're going to see the kind of effect it's going to do. Alright, now that I have it glued in place, I just want to give you guys a quick look where I glued it. See if I can get these out of the way all in one go. So as you can see, I glued down the wooden dowel right here, and all these center lines are going to get a wooden dowel glued down eventually. But now that we're going to go on to the next step, as you guys can see right here, so every line's going to get a wooden dowel, and then every middle of the log, where the middle or where the center of the log is right there, you're going to want to glue down each of these shingles there. So it's going to create a woven kind of look. So you're going to glue it down right there, and then a wooden dowel is going to go into the next line where that's at, and it's going to create the shingle look. So I'm going to go ahead and do the whole thing, all the wooden dowels put down and then this woven through it, and then we're going to come back and take a look at it so you guys can see how it makes it look like shingles. Alright, I just wanted to mention one more thing before I finish gluing the rest of these down in between the wooden dowels. I did get extra strips that I painted and all that kind of stuff, and I glued it onto the previous strips because they weren't long enough to go all the way across. So there is this one seam right here. You just want to make sure when you glue the last bit down from the first strip, you want to make sure where it ends is right in the middle of one of these logs. So when we do come back and glue down one of these wooden dowels that we painted, it's going to cover up that line. So you're not going to have that line there. You're going to have a seamless flow of shingles across. So I'm going to go ahead and glue the rest of these down, and then we're going to come back and glue the top dowels on top. Alright, now that I have all the things glued down now, all the way across, I'm going to go ahead and start putting down the wooden dowels that I painted earlier right on the center of the divots now. I am using hot glue. You could try using tacky glue on this. I'm not too sure if it's going to work, especially with the paint that I used. It kind of has a sheen to it, so kind of it's hard to glue stuff with regular glue on there. And if you are using hot glue like me, you don't have to put a whole line of glue. You could just put a dab of glue right here, and then a dab of glue right here, and then just put down your wooden dowel. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll glue a couple of these on here on camera, and then I'm going to go off camera once again and glue the rest of them on, and then move on to the next step. So here we go. So actually I could just apply a dab of hot glue right here, like I said, and then one right here. You don't want to put down too much hot glue, because when you put down your wooden dowel, you don't want the glue to be squeezing out from the sides, because then you're going to have to do some cleanup with your X-Acto blade. It's an extra little bit of work that you probably don't want to do, especially if you're gluing down every single one of these shingles. So I'm going to go ahead and do a couple more. Just a dab of hot glue right there, and then one right here. And then I'm going to grab another wooden dowel. Just place it onto the hot glue. Just want to make sure it's nice and lined up before it dries. Like I said, if you do put too much hot glue like I did right here, you go back with your X-Acto knife and kind of clean it up a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and let that dry. I'm going to press it down. My hot glue gun is pretty warmed up. I had it running for a while, so it takes a little bit longer for the hot glue to set. That should be good for that one. And again, like I mentioned before, since I didn't have long enough strips, I did glue two strips together right here. I'm actually going to go ahead and cover that seam up so there's no seams on here. Go ahead and put my hot glue there, and once again right here. And then just place my wooden dowel like the other ones. Line it up and press it down. And as you can see, it covers up that seam line very well. You can't even see the seam line anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and glue down the rest of these wooden dowels in each of the centers, and then we're going to come back to the final step. Alright, now we're on to the last step. As you can tell, I still have a little bit of hot glue to clean up with my X-Acto knife a little bit later, but I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next step because we're nearly done. I'm going to go ahead, this is the front of it. There's the side of it. Can't really see it because of how my lights are positioned. And here's the back. It's not really painted because nobody's going to really see the back of this dial when it's done. I'm going to go ahead and grab our bigger dowel that we have, and that's going to go ahead and be placed right up here at the very top. So as you can see, this would be the front, and this I'm going to just hot glue right up here so it could have a nice wooden beam on top. I'm just going to go ahead and place a big dab of hot glue at the very end, both ends, and then right in the center, and just glue it right behind the edge of these wooden dowels that are underneath the woven shingles that we did. I'm probably going to do that off camera again as well, just so it's make it easier on myself, so I don't have to, if I mess up, I don't have to take it apart and then put it back together. So I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera, and we're going to come back and see it all completed. So here we are, guys, all finished and completed. Here I have Iron Fist just right on the side so you guys can see how large this rooftop is. Like I mentioned in the beginning of my video, I have not finished the diorama that the roof goes to this. I've just been a little bit busy with a lot of things. But it will be completed sometime this month, and I will upload the diorama showcase that I usually do on my channel when it's already set and done. And like I mentioned before, somebody on Instagram messaged me and saying that they wanted a tutorial of how to do a rooftop for a dojo or some type of like temple. So this is my take on it. I've seen a couple pictures of somebody doing this technique, but there's no really tutorial out there. So I went ahead and did a tutorial for everybody to go ahead and use. And as always, guys, if you liked the video, don't forget to leave a like, a comment, and hit that sexy subscribe button. I have another tutorial for you guys. Another diorama tutorial. Fuck.